Hey guys, I just returned from Oculus Connect, and it was an amazing experience. I did lots of networking. I demoed Vanguard V wherever possible, and promoted VR in general. There was a lot of people who were very much aware of Vanguard V at the project. I got approached by quite a few people, and that was very new to me, honestly, because my face is somewhat on the internet, and not to a huge degree, but I'm unable to see you in return, so it's really difficult. I haven't quite got used to having somebody know me before I know them, or at the same time. So it's a little surreal. Anyway, just before leaving for Oculus Connect, I was working on Vanguard V's optimization, and I found some really crazy things about Unity. For instance, Unity doesn't tween animation, and what that means, let's see if I can get the animation window to show up on this screen, because it's assuming I have my other monitor plugged in. Hopefully this won't screw up the recording. Let's plug that sucker in. I guess that helps to turn it on too. Here we are. Alright, so let's see if I can get this to work. Come on. I'm sure this is just riveting over there. Doing the best I can, though. Yeah, come on. Zoom. Here we are. Alright, so here's the animation tool. It's currently very dominating. I'm just going to stick this over here. Alright, and we had looked at this before, and check this out. This is a lot of animation. This is the heart and soul of the first level of Vanguard V, because when you look at a rail shooter of experience, it's not very different from a cinematic experience, something you'd find in an animated feature film or whatever. And so one of the things that Unity has a problem with is tweening, and what that means, and here's all the animation, is if you have a frame, say right here to here, generally speaking, the game engines and animation engines will just store these two frames and interpolate through computation from whatever thing you want to do. So let's take a closer look here at the curve data. So you see, this is exactly what happens. You have a frame here and a frame here, and automatically it's supposed to just move the object over that span of time from those 2 points. However, in Unity's infinite wisdom, I'm not entirely sure why. Instead of doing that, what it does is it bakes a frame. It bakes its position every single frame. And when you're animating this at a 60 frames a second interval, let's see if I can find that exact number. It's not overly obvious to me, but when you get in here, every single one of these ticks, it makes a keyframe in the back end. And what this did is it made my animation files hundreds of megs. And after a certain point, Unity would crash, it would eat all of the animation data, and it would cost me hours of work to go and recover that from any backups. So what I ended up doing is splitting up the animation into 6 parts, just so that would all fit. And this was slow to load, this was slow to download. I mean, it made the project huge and a little malleable. So what I found out is once I learned that Unity doesn't really tween, and how I found that out is I actually opened up an animation file in a text editor and found that there was a keyframe for every single frame, even if I didn't put one there. So once I knew that, I cleaned up animations to only include ranges from where I'm using that. So you see all of these blanks here. I'm not animating until here, and that's a little uncommon for animation packages. I'm sure Unity has some interesting reasons as to why they're doing it this way. I would have liked an option to have chosen this, but that was not the case. So once I was able to clean all of this up to conform to Unity's standards, I was able to remerge all of the animations again, and instead of being hundreds of megs, all of them are, grand total is 10 megs. This is very good on my part, because now I can edit things much faster. It's good on your part because you'll be able to download it quicker, and it uses a lot less resources. So people on Android, for any Android build, should see a huge improvement on the mobile side of things, because there was a lot of RAM issues for other devices. So that was one of the things that I discovered just before leaving to Oculus Connect. one of the other things I discovered is that Unity, whenever you have an object that has a collider in it, regardless of what it's doing, you need to have a rigid body. Now, these are physics-based little particles. What these guys do is when you fly through them, they just kind of spread out from the force of you flying through them. But if we were to go to, say, over here, something that's keyframe animated versus physics-based, you'll see that I have a collider and that it's missing a rigid body. Now, I had to go through, this is just an example, this is why it's missing, but I had to go through every single one of these, anything that had a collider, and add a rigid body. And the reason why, and then you have to check this and this, and the reason why that's important is because when you do not have a rigid body in here, the collider goes through a completely different subsystem and takes a lot of resources. So once I found that out, I went through the entire game and attached a rigid body and chose is kinematic, which means that don't actually use physics on here. Just make sure the player collides with it, and that's about it. And just follow the animation. So once I figured that out, I was able to improve performance again significantly. Now, this is a little weird to me because I'm going to show you an example of why this is weird. If I were to go to create other, let's just make a cube, right? Look, it creates a collider, but I don't see a rigid body. Already, by default, it's given us a problem. This is the default behavior. Now, if you actually wanted to use it, you would also have to do this. Now, it assumes right off the bat that I wanted a collider, and it assumes right off the bat that I wanted shadows. And if I bring in my own mesh, it assumes right off the bat that I want to use an animation, even if the animation, there is no animation for that mesh. So there's a lot of these odd assumptions in Unity, and the best practices that they enforce and have running in the back end do not represent the editor itself. There's a little bit of a disconnect going on, and so now that I know that, I can certainly make your games run a lot faster, a lot better, a lot cleaner, a lot smaller. However, it took a lot of work to find all of that. So, I mean, I don't really need a cube here. We've all seen cubes before. So let me go over the near-term goals. At Oculus Connect, I set up a demo station at TechCrunch, and I'm going to give you a little interesting story here. People were playing Vanguard V, and there was this one individual standing up. It was really, really crowded there. And right next to me was this Star Wars demo. And they had these hand motion devices. I've got some here where it tracks your hands and such. And there was a lightsaber demo. And the guy who was playing the lightsaber demo got really enthusiastic. He was just going like this in the air, and eventually his fist connected with the person playing Vanguard right in the shoulder. Now, I don't know who this person was who got punched, but props to him because he just took it, continued to play Vanguard V, and acted like it never happened. Now, this was a big punch. He had no idea it was coming, and yet this guy powered through. The guy who was playing Star Wars, he continued to play Star Wars. He thought he had hit somebody he knew, and when he took it off, he started apologizing, but the person playing Vanguard V was still in VR space, so I didn't hear or see any of that. But I made sure to let him know that it was, give him my apologies, and to make sure that this doesn't happen again, I actually closed down the demo station because it was running a little late anyway, and I didn't want anybody else to get punched. So that's the funny story from just before Connect. During Connect, Vanguard V and Proton Pulse had more nominations for the Proto Awards than anybody else. There were 5 of them. That was pretty fun. And I was also there was a small clip of me in the opening keynote on Saturday. So that was interesting to see myself on screen in front of everybody. That was new for me. I spent a large part of the last day going into the demo room, and all that is a bunch of computers set up, and you just bring a demo you have. I went in there and popped in Vanguard V, and you only get half an hour slot, but I was able to plow through that, and I spent 2.5 hours there. I just demoed it to whoever I can. Now, when you're at Oculus Connect, there is a little bit of preaching to the choir going on. So everybody there is for VR, from VR. You know, these are this is still somewhat of a niche group, and however, it was important to me to make sure that I wasn't there just drinking cocktails or whatever. This was specifically for business, to network however I could, and there was some level of success for that. Next week is an event up in Seattle. It's invitation only. It's SCEA VR. So, no, not SC. That's Sony. No, it's SEA VR for Seattle, and it's for investors and journalist types. So I managed to get a booth space, and I'm going to be right there with Intel, Leap Motion, Oculus, the real guys, with my own booth. And I made sure to not pull any punches with this. So I laid down some fair amount of coin on my own account. I never ever dip into the game's budget for things like this. The game's budget is only for the game. You will only see anything you guys donate done here on the screen. But I put a fair amount of effort into making sure that I gave this my best possible go as him, and I'll show you some videos and stuff as that's in development. I'd love to share that stuff with you guys. But this is the next week's trip is basically my last trip on schedule for a while. I've been to SIGGRAPH and to Seattle for Unite and for PAX, presenting wherever I could, and I was in San Francisco twice this year and down to Hollywood for Oculus Connect. And it's just, there's more travel to indie development than I ever could have imagined, but this is specifically to make sure that I find any opportunity I can to make sure this project gets through, because it's really important to me that that VR development, that there's a studio dedicated to VR, not necessarily dedicated to indie development or anything like that. I want VR to be in the DNA of the game every step of the way, and that's my goal here, is to make sure Vanguard V gets made and that it's for everybody. So I'm not going to be handing it over to just Oculus or to just Sony. It's anybody who can enjoy VR can play this project. And so that's what I'm doing next week. I'm also meeting with Valve and sitting down and discussing their SDK and checking out their Valve room and such. So there will be some discussion on VR in Steam and see where the future lies in that venue. I hope you guys agree that's a good idea. And then I'll be returning here. And when I do, I'm returning the 2nd or the 3rd of October. When I do, I'm going to be turning off the PR mode. I'm going to be turning off the marketing. This is not me. This is not second nature. I'm not good at this whole PR thing. I'd much rather be here doing what I do best, is game development and VR development. This is my passion. This is where it lies. And for me to be out there traveling is very important, that I try to find any way I can to make this work. But it's also important not to get overly distracted. I left my job for a reason, is so I can focus. And so you should be seeing more updates and more of me in the coming weeks. Down the road, the schedule is, there's Gear VR coming out in October, and I have to make sure that Proton Pulse is ready. It's mostly done. I think it's only got a day or two's worth of work, and usually that's just fine-tuning for the final hardware, because there might be some minor differences, or they might need some assets for the store, and there won't be any sales coming in. My plan was to use all of the sales from Proton and put it directly into Vanguard, but it's my understanding, and there's an article on this on Polygon, that the payment system won't be available for a few months. And this puts me in a really awkward place where all content on the Gear store will be free for months, which means that there's going to be a lot of free content, and then I'm going to have to compete with all of that once the actual payment system comes in. So I don't know the dynamics of this stuff. As I said, it's not second nature to me, but it means I have to wait a little longer before I start seeing any of my effort come back in returns, so I can put that towards Vanguard V. So I don't know. I honestly, I wish I could see the future on this one, but that's more than anything, it's above there's nothing I can really do about that, unfortunately. So, but yeah, that's up and coming. Proton is ready. I'd love to have the PC version out at the same time. I've reached out to Oculus to see what their plans are for their online store for the PC side of things, because there's going to be some level of splintering, some multiple stores, multiple ways to get VR content. And one of the problems with that is when you have an update, you have to give an update for approval to every single one of those venues. You have to do it through Apple and Microsoft and Steam and all of that stuff, and then Oculus as well. And that causes some level of separation and problems. And so it's best whenever there's an update or a change that if you were to buy the game, that you know any updates or fixes will be there for you and you won't have to wait behind or anything like that. So I'm trying to find the best way to make sure that product is available as clean and clear for you guys as humanly possible. I'm going to be pulling away from Proton as soon as I can once I return, because I really need to get back into Vanguard V. We're going to be doing storyboards for the boss level. I have that pretty much laid out at this point, but I want to fine tune it so I can work with music and the voice talent to make that really solid. And then we're going to be diving right into level 2. And I'm genuinely excited to get started on that. There's some really cool ideas going on. So, because I mean, most of what I've been showing is like mid-development. There's nothing really starting from scratch, and hopefully that'll be changing real soon. So, I don't have a lot to show. I got to talk to John Carmack. He actually knew what Proton Pulse was already when I talked to him, so that was really touching. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've seen his game running on toasters and thermostats and stuff. It's everywhere. I mean, the guy who created Doom and first-person shooting and Wolfenstein and all that stuff is pretty well known, and the guy is brilliant to talk with. I mean, I could have gone on all night just discussing things like scan lines and various other low-level stuff, but yeah, it is what it is. And so I'm going to continue to be working for next week. So I hope to give you an update soon. Maybe we'll have some good news coming down the road. That would be my goal. See ya.